Good morning everyone, if it is morning where you're from. I've been playing a lot of this game, Schedule 1, recently. As you guys probably are aware, I just play it casually. I haven't been making any videos or content at this stage. However, I think there's a really cool base game here. It's quite simple. Obviously the internet's loving it, and people are loving the variety and a bit of creativity that this game has. Like, it's very creative and it's quite cool. I really like the concept, and someone's had a bit of fun making something really interesting. I think it's like a really good base for a game where it could really grow and you could expand on this concept. Like, it's simple, but it's also got like a simple charm to it, and it's also got some like really cool game mechanics. So for anyone who's unaware, this is Schedule 1. It's a game basically about dealing, questionable substances to people around town and the community, getting everyone hooked on them and becoming very rich. It's pretty chill. I quite like it. It's the kind of game you can just kind of casually put on, muck around with a bit, and yeah, it's quite engaging, and I think the success of this game online really kind of highlights that. So, I always like to come with ideas of how to improve games. I've commented a lot on forums in the past, and sent things to developers. Normally I actually make the effort of typing up an actual formal proposal would probably be the best description, of ideas, updates, and concepts that could be included, and sometimes these go nowhere, and other times I've seen really cool outcomes, like in Phasmophobia, where the developers included a bunch of cool concepts like cursed items, more atmospheric, more kind of ghost behaviour that really built into the game, and I felt made it a lot better, and it was really cool to see them implemented and hear back from the developers, which was, quite awesome, a little bit of achievement on my part, which I'm sure other people would have commented about as well, but it's cool to see them implementing some of the ideas, and these also have been taken across into other games. Anyway, that aside, I think the game's pretty solid. It's a lot of fun. You can actually play it co-op, which is probably one of the biggest features, because there's definitely an absence of games in that kind of genre, like co-op campaign. I know that people claim PvP is co-op, but it really isn't. It's a totally separate thing, and if you grew up with the earlier generations of gaming and co-op campaigns and stories and playing with your friends, you'll really know that it's fun and it's great, but it doesn't fill that kind of same niche. So, what next? Well, I think expanding the basic operations would be quite cool. So one of the things you could do is you could obviously include more substances and stuff like that. I think everyone's already kind of mentioned that plenty of times. But what if you could also include different dealers who aren't part of your particular group, who can sell you products for you to on-sell? This could be a way that you make money in the early game, and it could be more profitable than going off and growing your own stuff. However, it has a higher risk because you have to pay them back by a certain time, otherwise there are consequences. So that could also allow you to mix them and increase the value of those particular substances as well, and without having to, have a whole new growing mechanism. It could also mean that maybe there's some sort of black market, dark web aspect where you could order things online, which would come to you, however they may not necessarily be the same quality as what you were hoping for. And this would build into another characteristic, which I think would be quite cool, is what if you made it so that there was an additional feature or challenge to the game in the form of cartels or some sort of gang involvement. So picture this, like, you've already got this kind of base game and everything else, and you could kind of keep this as the easy or the introductory mode, and then have a secondary mode where your character starts heavily in debt to a cartel or some sort of criminal element, and that's why they blow up the trailer. And basically you're required to try and make payments each day. If you don't make the payment, they'll send people to go and rough you up initially, and later on they'll send people to try and take over your operation. So what you could have is build on this concept and have it so that initially you're making these repayments until you repay your debts. There's more pressure on the player and everything else. And then also have it where in the different elements and areas of town there is a certain gang. So what you could do is you could have it where the gang, who I highly recommend would be no particular ethnicity, given the recent thing of people trying to claim that this game is racist for what I think is a very trivial set of reasons, but I won't divulge on that further. In fact, I've got a whole video on that, so I recommend you check out the other video if you want to understand my stance on why I think that's silly. Anyway, so think of it this way: you go down into a particular area in the map, and if you're dealing in this area without having introduced yourself to the gang or whatever else, you'll get heat from the local gang, and the gang members can be just chill most of the time. However, if you're dealing on their turf, there's issues, and so you can take risks to go into these areas, but there's a chance you also might get jumped. If these guys jump you and knock you out, they'll take your drugs, or alternatively they'll hold you up and say, hand over what you got. And it's kind of like the frisk search mechanic as well can be that they are a little bit more thorough, or alternatively they just take the drugs off you and send you on your way if you're neutral with them. If you're bad with them, they're more likely to kind of harm you in some way. So the early gangs could be potentially by the water side and over by the apartment block. This could either be all one gang or two different gangs, up to the developers what they want to do there if they like the concept. And what you do is you have to go off and introduce yourself to them. They'll give you a request. They'll say, can you make a whole bunch of OG Kush by this timeline? With a request you obviously get money and stuff, but it also builds relationship. If you don't make the timings, then it decreases relationship, or if you're caught dealing on their turf, it also decreases the relationship. You can still recover it. You could also potentially have like a bounty system or something like that that could be put into place where you go and see the leader, or alternatively just have it where they get hostile to you, and that's a aspect of the game that you have to challenge yourself with in terms of, do I make sacrifices and make the game harder for me in the short term to go off and make more money, or do I kind of think ahead and plan ahead and try and stay on their good side but also have less customers and less risk? Part of this could also be that the customers in the gang areas as you go through the game are more and more well off. So you could have a very wealthy area further away where they're willing to pay a lot more. However, obviously you have to try and negotiate with these guys one way or another. This could also have another aspect too, in terms of you've got your stash houses and grow houses and stuff, and you can get an anonymous message or something along those sorts of lines where it tells you that there's going to be an attack on one of your stash places. So if you don't do anything about it, they'll come in and they'll take whatever drugs you've got there. They won't worry about ingredients, they won't worry about furniture or other and stuff like that, but they'll basically just kind of come in there, run in, nick most of your drugs, and you could have furniture that allows you to hide a smaller amount of your drugs as a reserve or things like that. And yeah, part of that is basically, it would produce a sort of system where you basically need to manage dealing with also other elements of the game and stuff. So it'll kind of expand on what we've already got here, but also make it another level. And obviously if you make the areas a bit bigger and expand the map further, this could also provide new opportunities to kind of further build on that concept. Part of this would also be that in the early game, if someone's coming to steal your stuff, it's probably just a single guy with a baseball bat, so you can kind of defeat him and there's actually a reason to have weapons. Because in all honesty, I've played this game a heap, I've made over 100k, I'm kind of approaching that million mark, and I've still never actually been arrested by the cops. It's pretty easy to avoid them, but this would be a whole other thing to manage and would add another layer of complexity. And of course this could be a kind of New Game Plus equivalent or an increased difficulty kind of equivalent, so that there's a bit more option there and it's a little bit more challenging. So with that as well, you could have it where as it progresses over time, these groups are either better armed by default, so you're dealing with ones that maybe like Italian mob style and they show up with like Tommies or something like that, and there's a reason for you to actually buy guns. Or alternatively, it could also just be bigger numbers, or they could just be more disruptive of your operations, so they go off and do things like set up their own kind of roadblocks around town and things like that to kind of mess with you. And there could also be a fee that's an option, so rather than, once you have a decent relationship initially, you have to pay a fee per day to deal on their area. And you have to kind of make like a choice as to is it worth paying that fee yet? Do I have enough product to actually make like a benefit of that, or do I have to maybe wait off? And as you get better relations with them, you potentially also could get kind of introduced, and you could also get friendly with that particular organisation, or alternatively you could even have it if you wanted to go all out kind of gang some kind of styles and have it where you can join an organisation and take territory. That aside, because that's quite a big concept, one of the things that would also be quite cool is the ability to go off and purchase businesses. So obviously there's the ones you can use for clearing cash, but there's a lot of other ones around here. There's fast food joints, there's arcades, there's a gun range, there's all kinds of things. So it could actually be quite cool if you could have it where you save up money and you get a legitimate stream of income from the businesses alongside the ability to launder money. One of the other options that could be kind of interesting or cool as well is you could have it where maybe the police do raids on your businesses and you have to basically rush over there and take out whatever money you were laundering for the day. You could also, if you want to be another step of difficulty, you could have it where your character starts on parole and your room is occasionally police checked, and have it where you have to cache your bits and pieces of contraband around town, or clear it out, and have those kind of regular things also disrupt your dealing a bit more, which again, just more complexity, more ideas. I know people have mixed views on these. Some people might just want to play the base game and that's cool, and some people might like the concept of all the rest of this. And so going into the late game, there's obviously the progression of substances you make and properties you buy, but I always felt this is a little bit limited, because once I kind of brought everything, it's like, okay, cool, I'm able to make heaps of stuff. I'm not really having to worry about finances at all. The game's, you know, kind of a little bit done at this stage. So I think it's kind of good to build on that, and I think that's kind of where a lot of the replayability and expansion would go, and kind of having that co-op aspect of having to deal with multiple tasks and send people off in your group to go and deal with different things. And you could also have it where eventually you're hiring guards and have a bit more management, I guess, built into the game, which would be quite cool. I mean, like, this game is essentially kind of a sim. So yeah, like, have additional kind of management built into the game. So you could have it where you have to, like, also maybe juggle the costs of little businesses, or have it where you have to hire guards to protect your stash houses from people robbing them. And these are just like additional costs you need to weigh up and figure out what you're doing with and make decisions about. Just adding more complexity and other bits and pieces to the game. And I think it's important to also maintain the base game as it is now. This is because basically there's a lot of people out there that will just really enjoy the game. They won't like it if you start adding new stuff in, and that's, you know, that's fine. They're entitled to be, you know, disappointed by that or annoyed by that. And I don't actually think that's a problem. I think that's something that's fine. And a lot of games don't seem to understand this, and they'll just only patch the base game over and over again. And they'll upset existing fans or people who are playing it multiple times, and they'll try and, well, they'll struggle between trying to tailor to the player base who are very experienced and very good at the game and streaming and making content, and also the new players. And what happens is you generally find the new players start losing out and the game loses popularity. But I think you could actually do a heck of a lot with this game, and especially if you keep that kind of fundamental co-op aspect of the game and just keep, yeah, basically keep what made the game so successful. Like, the absence of co-op games is just huge at the moment, and basically having the option to play co-op with your friends, do something fun, deal with various challenges and bits and pieces, and also be able to still goof around is pretty much like core, and it's awesome because it's so present here. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the game. I would love to hear some feedback. It would be brilliant to actually have some comments in the comment section of this video. Get your friends' kind of perspective as well, see what they reckon. It'd be actually quite interesting to see what other people think about these ideas. Like, obviously there's going to be different views and different concepts, and the best way that games develop is actually with conversation and the players engaging. Otherwise, what tends to happen is just you kind of get feedback from the streamers, and that's okay, but they're also in some ways not the best equipped people to comment, because they also don't have to worry about time. They spend all day playing the game and they can really master something, wherein the average player's probably a lot more representative of what the actual game's like, and it's bound to give better feedback. So I really encourage you guys to leave comments in this video, let me know what you think, suggest your own ideas, and don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, etc. if you like this stuff. Alternatively, if you're interested in some really catchy gaming music to put on in the background while you play this, I've also got a whole bunch of catchy gaming music and a playlist called Catchy Gaming Music, which I will hopefully remember to link below. And I also do some co-op gameplay and other videos, so feel free to check out my channel if you like. Hope you guys have a really awesome day, and hopefully you got something out of my development ideas in this video. Thanks again for watching, and have a good one.